Hello students, welcome to yet another data processing class. The topic we are going to consider today is spreadsheet packages for SS1. I remember last time we discussed spreadsheet packages and we defined spreadsheet packages as application programs, application software that are designed in grid of columns and rows used for analyzing data. We mentioned the things you can see whenever you open an application package using Microsoft Excel as an example. We looked at the workbook, we looked at the worksheet, we looked at the cells, columns, rows. We also considered the uses of application packages. But today we are going further to discuss some of the things, some of the formulas that you can work with, some of the data types that you can work with in Microsoft Excel. So by the end of this lesson, you are expected to be able to explain the 3 data types in Microsoft Excel. I remember last time I gave it to you to go and research their meaning. Secondly, you are expected to be able to use at least 4 Microsoft Excel formulas to perform some operations. Next, perform simple calculations using Microsoft Excel. Okay, let's start with data types that can be entered in Excel. In one of the WAEC questions, the students were asked to explain the 3 data types that can be entered in Microsoft worksheet. So this is what they are asking you for. Data types in Excel. They are labels, values, or constants, and formulas. Now, what is a label? Labels are text entries that describe the contents of other cells. For example, when you have column A, column B, column C, column D, and so on, and you create a table in that worksheet, you discover that under these columns, you may have name, you may have subject, average, and all that. So these text entries now are describing what you enter in the cells under them. So these are called labels. The next one we have is values or constants. Values are numeric information, usually numbers, that may be used for mathematical operations. I said values or constants are numeric information, usually numbers, that may be used for mathematical operations. Constants are entries that have specific fixed values. Numeric information, that is numbers, that their values are fixed. Then the next one we have formulas. These are entries that have an equation that calculates the value to be displayed. So whenever you enter a formula in a worksheet, you are expected to have a result as a result of the formula you entered. So the data types that you have in Excel are labels, values that can also be called constants, and formulas. Okay? Now let's look at the basic functions and formulas in Excel. The functions and the formulas in Excel are categorized under statistical function, logical function, mathematical function, and financial function. There are so many of them, but we use some under these ones to explain how some of them are used. Let's start with statistical functions. The first one there is the sum function. Sum function, sum, S-U-M, function. This function takes all of the values in each of the specified cells and totals their values. That is, if you have 5 students, assuming you are trying to compute a result, 5 students and they're offered maybe 10 subjects. You are trying to compute their scores in all the 10 subjects. The sum function will help you to total their scores. Instead of using your calculator to press 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus this plus that, the sum function would help you to do it faster. Now, how do you use the sum function? The syntax for sum function is equal to, that is, you put the equal sign, equality sign, then sum, you put your bracket, range. In our previous lesson, I told you what cell range is all about. When you have A1 to A3 or to A5 or to B6, that is the range. A1 to A5 is cell range. So when you are trying to use the sum function, you put the equality sign first, type sum. In bracket, you now put, depending on the range of the cell, A1 colon A5. Now let me tell you this, that every Excel formula starts with equality sign. You must put equal to, then you now type the formula before you put the range or the number. So for example here, we have equal to sum bracket A1 colon A7. That means the entries we are trying to add up are spread across A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, and A7. You close the bracket and press enter. Then the totals of all the scores there will be displayed. Or you can also say equal to sum bracket A1, you put comma. That is when the cells are not together. Understand this now. You have A1, A2, A3. They are together on the same line. But when the cells are scattered and you still want to add the content of those cells together, you use comma to separate the cell address or addresses in that bracket. That is A1, comma, B3, comma, F8, comma, E2, comma, you close the bracket and press your enter. Do you get that? The cells are scattered all over the worksheet. But when the cells are just there in a range, you can just use A1 colon A7 or A5 or A whatever. And it will give you the total of the selected cells. I hope you have that now, right? Good. Now let's look at another function, average function. This function finds the average of the specified data. It finds the average of the specified data. It simplifies adding all the indicated cells together and dividing by the total number of cells. That means if you have a cell range that you want to find their average, the syntax is just equal to average. You put your bracket A1 colon maybe A5 or B5 or C, depending on the cell range. You strike your enter key and the average will be displayed. Alternatively, you can also do that using the sum totals that you have already achieved before. That is, if you have the totals of the scores in one cell, you can also say equal to average A1 slash, that is the sign for division now in Excel, slash, that is over the number of cells. If you have 5 cells that you want to find their average, you now say A1 slash 5. That is A1 divided by 5. It will also give you the same result. Okay? Alright. Remember, your hands should be on the keyboard for you to be able to achieve this. Then another function is the max function, M-A-X. That max there is for maximum. Maximum. You use this when you want to determine the highest score or the maximum value among a selected range of cells. So this function returns the largest value in the selected range of cells. If you have about 10 entries that you have made in a worksheet and you want to determine which of the entries is the largest among them, that is for values, not text now, this function will help you to do that. The syntax is equal to max, then range. Assuming you have values entered from A1 to maybe E10, you can say equal to max bracket A1 colon E10. You close the bracket. It will just return a single value that is the highest value among all the entries that you have selected. Then the next one is the min function. M-I-N, min function. Min is for minimum. And this function returns the smallest value in the selected range of cells. The syntax is also equal to min bracket range. You close the bracket. Please, I want to let you know that whenever I say syntax here, syntax in computer, we use it to determine the rules of a particular programming language. Okay, so this is the rule for this. Okay, now another function here is the count function. Count. C-O-U-N-T. Count function. This function will return the number of entries in a worksheet. It counts each cell that contains a number data in selected range of cells. Please, count function will not count text entries. It will only count number entries. For example, assuming you have 100 cells, and in those 100 cells, you have numbers entered in 80, and other ones are text entries, and you use this count function, it will only return the total number of cells where there are number data typed in. Do you understand? It will not return text entries. Okay? Then another function is the standard deviation function. STDV function. This calculates the standard deviation of values within a given range of cells. In mathematics or in economics, you solve some problems talking about standard deviation. So Excel can also help you do that without wasting much time. Just enter the right formula and you have your answer. Now let me tell you, most times students will want to go to the auto formulas in the Excel. I don't like my students using those things. Sometimes when I ask you to find the total of a given range of cells, some of you will just go there, click auto sum. You get the answer correct. But there is a disadvantage to that. In examination, sometimes the exam bodies will require you to write down the formula you used in solving that problem. So if you use auto function, auto sum, or auto whatever to achieve that result, and you are asked to write it down, you may not know exactly. So I challenge you to always type the formulas on the keyboard so that it will be part of you. Okay. Now let's look at another function here, the logical functions. These are used to evaluate a condition that depends on one out of two outcomes. Assuming you have some entries you made in a worksheet, and the answer you want to get there, maybe you want to say, yes, this person passed, or no, this person did not pass. This kind of function will help you to do that. Under logical function, you have the if function. If function will check the logical condition of a statement and return one value if true and a different value if false. We check the logical condition of a statement and return one value if true and a different value if false. Now, this particular function is a little bit challenging, especially among students, because it's not just like the average function where you put equal to average, bracket and range. There are some things you put some commas and quotation marks. So note, value return may be either a number or text. So when you are using if function, you can return a number, it can return a text depending on what you are looking for. Assuming you want to determine whether a student passed or failed, you can still use pass or fail. If you want to use 70%, 80%, or you want to use grade A, B, C, D, with this function, you do that. If the value returned is text, it must be in quotes. So note that it must be in quotes. Now let's use this to show the example of how the if function can be used. Now look at this table. Look at this spreadsheet. In this spreadsheet, you have the column A, B, C, D. Column A has maths under it, B, English, C, total, and D, remark. Now, for you to determine whether a student here has A as grade or B or C, depending on what you're looking for. How do you do that? Watch. If, that is equal to if, bracket, you're not saying if C2 is greater than 100, that means the person will score A, 100 and above, A. You are now saying again, if C2 is greater than 80, B. Note that you have comma, you have double quotation mark again, then comma, before the next statement. Do you get that? So I want you to understand this. Because if you fail to put comma, it will not work. If you fail to put quotation mark, it will not work. Now you're not saying again, if C2 is greater than 80, that means the person will score B. You say again, if C2 is less than 70, the student will now, the grade will be F. We said greater than. Remember this function, we said two outcomes. We are now saying less than. The person will score, or the grade will be F. Now, because I have used only 3 criteria here, that is 100, 80, 100 for A, 80 for B, and 70 for F. At the end, I now have 3 brackets for 100. If you are doing it in your system, you discover that when you put the first bracket, you discover that the last statement there, the color of the bracket will change. You put another bracket, the next one will change. You put another bracket, the next one will change until all the statements are represented. So that's why at the end I have 3 brackets there for 100, 80, and 70. You now strike your enter key and the result will be displayed. So I hope you are trying that now. Okay. Then other functions, you have the mathematical function. SQRT function, that is for square root. This is used to calculate the square root of a number. Just the way you calculate square root using your calculator with Excel, just put equal to SQRT, then put the number and strike your enter key. The square root of that number will be displayed. Okay, count function, I've said that before. And remember I said black entries are not counted. Text entries are not counted. That is in the count function. Then there is another function called count A function. Count A is different from count function. Do you understand? Okay. It counts each cell that contains number data or text data in the selected range of cells. So in this case, when you are using the count A function, whether the cell contains text entry or number entry, that cell will be counted. So the count A function will simply return the number of all the cells where you have data, be it number or text. Okay? Alright. There are some other functions that we work with in Microsoft Excel, but we cannot just look at all of them at the same time. So we take it bit by bit. We have the power function, we have the product function and all that. So, but I want us to start working with especially the sum function. Let's start with the simple ones. Average function, max function, min function. Now, I also want to tell you this, that even if you want to add some cells, the content of cells, you may still not use sum. You can also say equal to A1 plus A2 plus A3 plus A4 and press your enter key and the result will be achieved. So this is not what you read on paper and understand. Please, I want you to be punching the keyboard. Okay? Wherever you have problem, please don't fail to communicate to me so that I'll put you through. Now, we also have financial functions. This function is used to calculate some financial functions such as profits, salary, payments, loan, etc. So when we are able to get the simple ones correctly, we'll gradually come up to this one that are more complex. So that somebody now, as a data processing student, can calculate profit in his or her business, can even work out salary structure for his or her establishment, payments, and loan. You work out loan for people as a data processing student. Now, there is something I want you to do, because like I said before, there is no way you understand this because it's purely a practical thing. I want you to use this and punch the keyboard. If you have any problem that will require my attention, don't fail to inform me. Now, this is an assignment that I want you to do. You use a spreadsheet to answer the questions below. This is the spreadsheet. This is the spreadsheet. You are going to do it like this. Just get this table in your own computer. Open Microsoft Excel. Produce exactly this table. Now look at what you are going to do. Number 1 question. Use Microsoft Excel to produce the table above. 2. Under the name column, enter the names of 9 students. Allocate marks to each of the students in the subjects represented in the table. So what you do, you enter the names of the students of your choice. Under the subjects there, allocate scores or marks of your choice. Then use the right formula to determine I, the total score for each student. So in this case now, you know the formula that will help you to sum the total scores together. II, the average score for each student, and III to determine whether a student passed or failed. Now I want you to use average pass mark as 70. So that means any student that will score in his average or her average 70 and above, that is the person in your remark that should carry pass. Else, the person will have failed there. Number 5. Write out the formula you used to determine the total score for the first student. So in this case now, I want you to write out the formula you used to determine the total score for the first student that you entered his or her name there. Not the person that is first in the scores, but the first name that you entered there. That is the first student, the total score of the first student. II, average score for the last student. So the person whose name is at the bottom line, the last name there. What formula did you use to achieve or get the average score of that person? And III, what formula did you use to determine whether a student passed or failed? Do you get that? So in this case now, that is where the if function will come in. So I want you to write it down. The formula you use to determine whether a student passed or failed. Okay? Alright. So far, from the previous lesson, you have looked at the meaning of spreadsheet, what Excel is, Excel window, the contents. You looked at the workbook, what a workbook is, the difference between workbook and worksheet, what a cell is, what cell range is, column and rows, what they are. You also looked at the steps that will enable you create a worksheet. You have also looked at some of the things you can see on the window. That's where you have the name box, the formula bar, and the sheet tabs. Now you have looked at some of the formulas that you can work with in Microsoft Excel. Please don't fail to practicalize. Use the computers. If you don't have, please, you can find a friend and align yourself with so that you learn this. We still need time to do it together, but in your individual places, I would like you to do it. Please do it and forward the assignment to me. Thank you and God bless you as you continue to stay safe. I remain my honorable self, Mr. Chukwuma C. Goodbye.